Now I am able to easily connect with different stakeholders. I'm not afraid to ask. I think the worst thing that can happen is someone saying no, but at least I'll have asked and been able to take that leap of faith.
Well, I say this all the time, but I'm excited because I have another guest on this episode who is a return guest from the podcast. So we have to look up the number. I'll get it right by the time we get to the show notes. But welcome back, Misozi. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We spent a few minutes, the last few minutes, chatting a little bit and catching up. These episodes are so much fun for me because I I get to see and hear from guests that I've interviewed, sometimes from way, way back before the pandemic, like in your case, and then just kind of catch up and see how things are going. And yeah, so tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Let's start there with introductions.
Sure. Thank you again for having me. My name is Misozi Houston, and I am a Master Certified Health Education Specialist with a background in community health education, community engagement, and I am currently working as a credentialing professional as a project specialist with the credentialing organization here in Pennsylvania.
Nice. We go way back. I remember meeting you in person at a conference, APHA conference, and you were still a student. You remember that?
I remember that fondly because you had shared tips that I still share today on how to organize my research. So, yes, I believe we met in 2018 at the APHA in Georgia.
Yeah, that was so much fun. I remember. So this was very early, and the podcast had been like in its first year, and or just over a year old at that point. And you were listening, and you emailed, and at that point I have a very small team, so and not a whole lot of emails coming in. So you, I got that one, and you were trying. You said, "I'm going to be at the conference. It'd be great if I could I just have a minute to meet with you." And I was so excited and impressed with your effort to connect. And we found, I don't know how we found our way to connect in the, what, 10, 12,000 people that were there.
Yeah.
But, but we did. And that was, and then I think almost, I want to say every conference every year since, for the most part, give or take one or two around the pandemic time. But we've been able to see and reconnect since. So it's been fun to watch you go through from student to your career, and seeing you in person and connecting and staying in touch online has been really, really nice.
Yeah, it's been exciting. I've also seen the podcast grow, so congratulations go to you as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's. I have to look back. I think your previous episode, we think it's like in the 70s in terms of number, right?
Yeah, 60, late, high 60s or early 70s, around
Yeah.
there.
So we're like
And now you're in
three.
300, so
I know,
that's
right?
huge. Yes.
So we're like 300 episodes later.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, let's jump into the journey here because I am excited to kind of catch up and hear about how you're doing. I love this the same question that I probably asked you in the previous episode. So if you're listening to this episode right now, don't worry, I will have it figured out by the time I get to the end, and I'll share with you the show notes. We'll make sure you have links to connect and listen to that previous episode as well. But taking this kind of retrospective view, I like to go back, and kind of fast forward to where we are now. But let's start at the beginning. Like, when did you first learn about or become interested in public health as a career?
Sure. So, my introduction to public health was when I was younger. My mother always instilled in us the awareness of people who either lacked basic access to basic needs, for example. And every so often, she would take us to a different part of town where we would either be providing services or some goods or supplies to people who lived there. So that was my first unofficial introduction to public health. Initially, I thought I would go into medicine. So in Africa, you're either one of three, you're directly one of three trajectories: engineering, law, or medicine. And upon looking at the different coursework that medicine has, I said, this is not for me. I wanted the non clinical side and really more that social sciences perspective. So I really became interested in public health and really started volunteering, getting to know different people and the different career opportunities available in public health. And that was really how I ended up where I am today.
Oh, that's really nice. I know, especially in my case, a lot of folks will just kind of stumble into it somewhere, after or in college. It's like I hear that a lot, but often not even till later. Like in my case, it was much later. It's nice to hear that at least that introduction, early on and kind of understanding it early on. I really think back to some of the work that my mother did, and I think she was in public health and it wasn't really, called public health or a thing,
Hmm.
certainly
Hmm.
in the area that we were in. But yeah, that's a great story and great introduction. So tell us a little bit about passion areas. So is there a population or a condition or even a public health problem or issue that you are most passionate about?
Found that despite the many roles I've had, I still keep navigating to addressing health disparities, really the underserved communities. It's about empowering these people to either connect them to the resources that they are lacking or really just increasing awareness. Sometimes people are not aware of their resources or the ability to connect to those resources. And really, we just saw the shift in the pandemic, right? Just how many people were lacking those basic needs and how that affected even their access to health. So, really, just that population, the underserved, low income population, is my area of interest.
And tell us about what the work that you're doing. So I can't remember at the time of the interview. I think you were working at, I want to say, United Way.
Yes, I was at a nonprofit doing some community classes and I pivoted. So, I think 2018 was our interview. I think that was the time. But I
Yeah.
pivoted 2020. I think everybody pivoted to different roles. And I found myself really doing a lot of awareness and really about risk reduction and also communication. And that work that I did at that time also then led me into this role. Initially, I was a communication specialist, and now I'm in a role of project specialist at the organization I'm with right now.
So tell me a little bit more about what you do, in this role kind of day to day.
Yeah, sure. So, in my role day to day, a lot of it is looking at the credential programs that the organization has and really helping ensure that the organization is meeting its dual accreditation requirements. So, a lot of project management, overseeing different requirements and making sure that the organization is not just checking those boxes, but really doing what it says it's going to do.
I have such an appreciation for those types of roles, especially now with, our growing team. That's really vital to have someone that has those skills to be organized and to keep the project moving and to make sure that we're not tripping over ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Is
takes
that
a great skill, yeah.
Yeah. Is that very different than what you were doing before?
Yes. So when I left the nonprofit that I was with, I think the last time we had our interview, I then moved into communications role. So I was basically in communication, and then from there, I got because of my different, I guess, work set and different skills that I brought to the table. When the individual that had this role left for a different opportunity, I was then promoted into the role that I'm in right now. So that did help, just having that communication experience and really just being able to leverage different skills that I brought to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you get the opportunity to do a lot of work with? You mentioned earlier the area or the population that or I guess the thing that you're most passionate about is like addressing disparities. Do you get the opportunity to connect with that kind of passionate work on a regular basis or at all?
So not currently because I did have a personal matter that was taken care of, but I am looking forward to the summer and beyond because I'll be serving in a volunteer role and be able to provide some insight to the organization that I'll be volunteering with. I can't mention it right now; it's not official yet. But
Okay.
I'll be working a little bit more in a kind of a lead role as a volunteer
Yeah.
for that.
I like to hear that because I was also catching up with, with someone else about where they are with with their career and so forth. And one of the things that we talked about was how you can be really passionate about a certain area or certain thing. And it doesn't mean that that is the work that you do full time or all the time. And even in consulting, because she was a consultant, like we think that, oh, this is what I'm focusing on, I'm passionate about. This is only the type of work I'm going to do. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's a little indirectly connected to what you care about. So, she mentioned the same thing. Sometimes we get a project that crosses our desk at work that is somewhat connected, we can get real excited about. And then sometimes it's just those outside activities and those philanthropic, type of lanes that we run in, and we're able to connect and do that work. So hearing you talk about the volunteering, which is always wonderful, right? It's not just when you're a student looking for a job. It's really like how you can show up, right?
Right, right, right. Those leadership opportunities and leadership development skills.
Great point. So let's talk a little bit about, this is where I call connecting the dots. So when I
Hmm.
think about this, and what I'm really meaning is I have a goal, kind of a personal goal here, of helping to, in a sense, normalize some of the terms we use in public health. What is public health really? And it's so vague and broad that it's sometimes hard to conceptualize for people. And then even when it comes to epidemiology, it's like we can Google it or open up an old textbook and get a definition, but what does it really mean? And it means something a little different to everybody, and depending on the situation and how we apply it. And so when I have this little segment called connecting the dots, it's really so that we can take kind of your perspective, your story, and what you have to share about it, and people hear that, and I think it helps. I get a lot of feedback from people saying that they really like kind of this part of it. So that's my goal and my intention with these questions that seem like rapid fire, but they're really not. So my first, there's two questions. So the first question for you is, how does the understanding of public health help you better serve the community, or, the work that you do, and have a greater impact?
Sure. So I have a master in public health with a focus in community health education, which helps provide me with a multifaceted understanding of just the different complexities that are available, not just in healthcare, but just really the public health landscape. And there are certain tools that help me with effectively collaborating with different individuals, different industries, or different walks of life to be able to contribute to the broader impact in several ways. So, my expertise right now helps me to develop tailored health education messaging. I mentioned earlier that during the pandemic, I had to pivot to really a lot of vaccine outreach, communication awareness, risk reduction kind of information to let people know that these are the issues that are happening. Here's what you can do to kind of mitigate your risk from contracting the COVID-19 disease. And also being able to really connect with those different diverse populations, because just because I learned something one way doesn't, and was able to educate the community with one avenue, doesn't mean that's going to exactly work for the different populations. So being able to tailor those different messages based on the population of interest has also been helpful. And also leveraging the different public health frameworks to assess different community needs. And then also, I talked about identifying disparities, which are really important before one decides on an intervention.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in that same vein, the second question is, how does the understanding of epidemiology help you better serve the community, and have a greater impact?
Yeah, so definitely, even though something is happening somewhere else, it doesn't exactly mean that it's not going to impact our health in one different part of the either state or world. So my understanding of epidemiology really is the why behind how infections spread, what we can do as public health professionals, and really just educating and advocating for change at the local, regional, and federal level in order to promote health in different areas. This could also mean something as important as voter registration, because that could impact the community's health. Because something as basic as completing the census could mean the difference between a hospital being built in the community to serve multiple needs, or really just having to travel many miles to access healthcare.
Okay. Yeah, I like that question. I like to ask that question and hear what people, how they respond, because, and especially your response, because it means something a little different for everyone, and we don't want to just crack open a textbook for epidemiology. But you're right, it does help with the why, behind things. So great, thank you for sharing that. So I'm enjoying our catch up for sure. And I am going to be mindful of time, but I do have another question that I'd like to ask. And it is considering well, actually, before, I have two questions. So
Uh-huh.
before I get to this is kind of a surprise question, I guess. I didn't plan for it. But I'm just curious, thinking about how your first, time on the podcast, where you were in your career and how, we were engaging at that time to now. What do you think are some of the bigger changes that you've experienced, or like the bigger differences in now versus then? That, of course, you've it feels like I asked this question because everyone that I've brought back so far is like, I'm such a different person. I'm doing something so different. So I'm curious, like, how do you feel? What stands out for you the most in thinking about that interview back then compared to where you are now?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. It brings back fond memories. So I definitely think I've grown as an individual and as a professional. I think at that time I was just starting because I was straight out of grad school, just starting this new role after being out of the workforce for a while. And now I am able to easily connect with different stakeholders. I'm not afraid to ask. I think the worst thing that can happen is someone saying no, but at least I'll have asked and been able to take that leap of faith. I'm not afraid to network anymore, which is really important because that's how we grow, right? The role that I'm in right now is all because of networking. And I think that's a really important aspect that some people tend to overlook. Jobs are not just about what you see on posted on a website. It's really about who you know and who being able to put a good word for you.
I love that. Actually, you just probably wrapped up my last question.
Okay.
Because I was going to ask you for any bit of advice that you would share with someone. If you have any more to add, that'd be great. But you just shared some really great advice through your own experience in answering that question.
Yeah, I would share. So, for someone, for example, who's looking to do health education, for example, that might be want to consider a certification, could be in project management, could be in different things, or even health education certification. That also could help you grow. And in a pool of many individuals applying for that one job could help you stand out. And then I think I already mentioned networking is a very important and sometimes overlooked resource that everyone could have. You could attend some public health networking in your community, alma mater, just different things like that. Just connect with individuals. And LinkedIn is a great resource for professionals. There are multiple groups, either for females in public health or the American Public Health Association. And this podcast is a really great resource as well because you highlight different individuals in different industries that are also doing multiple things to promote health.
Yeah, thank you for adding that in too. I think that sometimes people forget that they can connect with our guests, and I'm thinking maybe I need to mention that more often. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's a great resource because people, especially if they reach out and say, I heard you on this podcast, and then lead in, it's super easy, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, great tips.
Yeah, really that relationship building is key because I think a lot of our people that support us in the work that we do, collaboration is key, and you can't have collaboration if you don't have that strong relationship. So building those genuine relationships and partnerships with the people you serve and the people who are in the communities that you want to serve.
That's important. The key there, that relationship. And I think it's easy for us to forget about that or overlook that or assume that someone is not interested or unapproachable or all those things. But if we're not, really striving for that connection, sometimes it's, I'll say this, and I won't go on a tangent, I promise. But sometimes when someone is like connecting, it's like even on LinkedIn, they most of the time people still will not put a message there. That's such a missed
Oh, no,
opportunity.
no, no, no. Yeah. If you're listening and you want to reach out to someone on LinkedIn, just a brief bio about why you're connecting, who you are,
Yes.
and then the best way to reach you. Don't hi connect with just please don't do that.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is such an easy thing to do, and you would be surprised if I have 100 connection requests, I may have five that put a message.
Wow.
And that's such a missed opportunity, especially for people that I have a pretty active LinkedIn account now and a lot of followers, and I try to stay, on top of things. But the people that, do take the time to add that message, they stand out. Another thing is the it stays in there. It makes it easier when you follow back up with them to have that message right there in the history. So
Definitely.
it's just a great thing to do. So Thank you for sharing those tips and for coming back on the podcast and giving us updates. I really am excited about that and happy that you're here. I love your tips. I love everything that you shared, especially the networking piece. And I was mentioning the missed opportunity. So when people put their connection request in on LinkedIn and they don't personalize it with a note or say anything like, I heard you on the podcast, or sometimes it can be super easy. Like, think about whatever it is that caught your attention from the beginning. Maybe sometimes what catches someone's captures my attention could be
Mm-hmm.
that we have something in common, like maybe we're from the same area, or something like that. I'll mention that in the request, and it stays in the messages. So when you follow up with that person, sometimes you'll engage a little bit and then it goes cold. A
Right.
year or two later, that person messages you back and you go back to your history in the conversation. And that's how it is in so many situations. But when people don't take the time to put any message at all and they just send the connection request, that's a missed opportunity.
Agreed. Agreed. It doesn't take too much. Just your name, why you're reaching out, and then how best to connect with you. And even if you want to have a 15, 5 minute phone call, definitely put that in the message so they're not filtering, trying to figure out what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. I do get a lot of requests, and I have to say no most of them. Like, a lot of times people will ask for a call, or people will ask for students that are doing assignments will
Review my
ask,
research.
yes. Or can we do an interview because I have to interview a professional, which I
Oh,
appreciate that, but I can't do those anymore.
right.
Sometimes I will then respond and share the podcast as a resource, and I'll say, I've interviewed so many public health professionals. Go through those episodes. If someone sounds interesting or looks interesting to you, then reach out and see if they would be able to do that for you. So at least try to come back with um,
A
uh,
solution.
a solution, or I'll point them in the direction. And sometimes I can't. So I apologize if you're listening to this. You go, well, you never responded to mine. It has gotten really, really. It's one of the
Intense.
places that I don't hand off. So I do all of my own responding on on LinkedIn, because that's the only place that I'm really spending time there.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to keep up with that. But yes, the whole point here is to personalize. Don't lose that opportunity to send a personal message, because I am not exaggerating. If I get 100 requests, maybe 5 of them will have a message, and I would say half of those are spammy and not real messages anyway. So
Right there, an invitation to follow a podcast
right.
or a page. Yeah, so
Yeah.
definitely students, or like whatever field you're in, wherever you're at in your career, definitely add that personal message to your request. It's definitely not a lost art and something that you don't want to miss out on.
Yes. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I am so excited to watch your journey. I love to see where you've come from, and I'm excited to see where you're going. Like, in another 300 episodes, what are you going to be doing then?
Hopefully, some good stuff. I can't wait to keep you posted.
Absolutely. We will be in touch for sure. Well, you have a great day, and thank you for being here. I really do appreciate you.
Thank you, and thanks for what you do.